Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I'm really glad you're here because today we are unpacking a massive, fast-moving geopolitical escalation between the United States and Iran. We're looking at a situation with overlapping military strikes, completely shattered diplomatic agreements, and a fundamental struggle over one of the absolute most vital waterways on the planet. I want to guide you through exactly what the source material is telling us, map out the chaos, and bring some much-needed clarity to a global flashpoint that could, quite literally, impact the entire world's economy. The stakes here are astronomical, touching everything from international supply chains to the price you pay for everyday goods. So let's get right into it.
Okay, so let's just dive right into it. Why has this critical shipping lane, a place most of us only really think about when gas prices suddenly spike at the pump, transformed into an active military zone? To really grasp this, we have to look past the chaotic breaking news headlines and examine the deep structural pieces on the board. We're witnessing a massive collision of totally different military strategies, rigid territorial claims, and absolute demands over international trade rights. All of these huge geopolitical forces are converging right now on a very narrow, highly volatile stretch of water.
Here's a quick roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the wave of retaliatory strikes. Then, we'll zoom in on the Strait of Hormuz itself. After that, we'll break down the strategic targets and tactics, discuss the end of diplomacy, and finally, look at the shifting regional alliances.
All right, starting with Section 1, a wave of retaliatory strikes. According to Fox News, the specific trigger for this recent escalation happened just days ago. A commercial ship flagged out of Cyprus was attacked right while it was trying to cross the strait. A severe fire broke out, leaving this massive ship totally immobilized. And tragically, an Indian crew member is currently missing. Following that initial spark, the United States issued a very strict, zero-tolerance deadline for Iran to reopen the strait to all global shipping. Well, that ultimatum was completely ignored, and the response, by midnight on Sunday, the whole thing just erupted. Both the U.S. and Iran launched overlapping, major waves of airstrikes, plunging the region into an immediate kinetic conflict. To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of the U.S. response, just think about this staggering number, 140. Al Jazeera reports that the U.S. Central Command hit roughly 140 different Iranian military targets across 5 completely separate provinces. This is absolutely not some isolated surgical operation. We're talking about the largest, most expansive wave of attacks carried out by the United States in recent memory. It's a massive response meant to unequivocally answer those initial triggering events and just completely degrade the opposing military infrastructure.
And this brilliantly illustrates how this is absolutely not just a localized two-country conflict. The fallout is literally echoing across multiple borders all at once. In Kuwait, drones hit 3 border posts and an oil rig. In Oman, which is a country that historically acts as a neutral mediator in the region, military assets, including a U.S. asset, were targeted for the very first time. Jordan was directly struck by Iran's elite Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC. Meanwhile, advanced air defense systems had to be triggered immediately to intercept incoming missiles and drones flying right over Qatar, the UAE, and Bahrain. The escalation has essentially spilled over into the entire Gulf region in a matter of hours.
Moving to Section 2, the Strait of Hormuz. Look, the Strait of Hormuz is basically the central artery for global energy and international trade. It connects the Persian Gulf directly to the open ocean. To put that into perspective, roughly a fifth of the world's total daily oil consumption squeezes through this one incredibly narrow bottleneck. If this waterway closes, the global economy faces immediate, severe inflation and critical energy shortages. And right now, its status is fundamentally disputed. The U.S. Central Command insists it is open for transit and vows to guarantee that with military force. Meanwhile, Iranian authorities claim the exact opposite, saying the strait is officially closed to any vessel not coordinating directly with their forces.
To enforce these completely opposing positions, it all comes down to geography. The U.S. keeps heavily targeting 2 specific locations, Bandar Abbas and Qashm Island. Bandar Abbas is Iran's largest port. It's an absolute economic lifeline for them, while Qashm is the largest island in the Persian Gulf. As Al Jazeera details, both of these spots host IRGC naval forces, critical radar stations, and major telecommunication towers. The U.S. is going after these high-value sites because they literally give Iran full physical and technological oversight of the strait. Without these outposts, controlling the waterway is, well, pretty much impossible.
Okay, Section 3, strategic targets and tactics.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the sheer contrast in military doctrine. It's like watching 2 completely different philosophies of warfare going head-to-head in real time. On one side, the U.S. is leaning heavily on large-scale conventional superiority. They're using advanced land-based fighter jets, drones, and ship-fired munitions to systematically degrade Iranian air and naval capacities.
On the flip side, Fox News analysis highlights that Iran's strategy is deeply rooted in asymmetric warfare. They're expertly using the IRGC Quds Force to menace wide-ranging regional targets with limited but highly disruptive drone and missile tactics. You can actually see this stark difference when you look at the specific targets chosen by each side. The U.S. is methodically striking heavy military infrastructure, taking out missile and drone launch sites, crippling naval capacities, and destroying that surveillance tech we just talked about. Iran, on the other hand, is playing a much broader, asymmetric game. They're hitting civilian, commercial ships, striking border crossings and oil rigs in Kuwait, targeting U.S. facilities spread across the Gulf, and actively disrupting gas pipelines. It is a textbook battle of conventional military degradation versus widespread asymmetric economic disruption. Which brings us to Section 4, the end of diplomacy. The core diplomatic deadlock driving all this violence actually stems from two totally incompatible readings of an existing Memorandum of Understanding. The United States firmly demands that the Strait is a recognized international waterway open to all legal global trade and guaranteed by U.S. security. But the Iranian demand leans heavily on a very strict interpretation of Article 5 of that exact same memorandum. They claim the specific article gives them sole, undisputed control over the Straits, meaning they see any uncoordinated ship transit as a direct, illegal violation of their territory. And because of this, Al Jazeera is reporting that any real hope for a peaceful solution is fading fast. Neither side is giving an inch. The rhetoric has completely matched the physical strikes. Just listen to what the Iranian chief negotiator Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf said. He stated bluntly, "The era of one-sided deals is over. Keep your words or you're going to pay the price." The intense reality on the ground and in the water has effectively torn these agreements to shreds, leaving a massive diplomatic vacuum. Now, flipping to the U.S. perspective, there is a ton of skepticism about Iran's true intentions here. Former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matt Whitaker, hit the nail on the head when he said, "The Iranians seem to get their house in order. The folks that are shooting missiles need to make sure they are coordinating with the people negotiating the peace deal." So the crucial takeaway here is that U.S. analysts essentially see this as a good cop, bad cop routine. The military faction actively attacks and disrupts, while the diplomatic faction stalls at the table to buy time. Let's zoom all the way out for our final section, Section 5, a shifting regional alliance. Because these strikes are rippling out and hitting neighboring nations, we're actually seeing a brand new regional security map being drawn in real time, one that completely excludes Iran. According to sources on Fox News, major regional powers, who definitely don't always see eye to eye, like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, and Pakistan, are rapidly coming together. They're informally calling it the Art For. They are actively figuring out their own independent security frameworks without any input or cooperation from Tehran whatsoever. The geopolitical reality that analysts across the board are pointing out is that Tehran is becoming really isolated right now. It's not just the US and Israel responding anymore. The fact that the IRGC has recklessly hit sovereign assets in Kuwait, Oman, and Jordan has forced a highly diverse coalition of Middle Eastern and South Asian nations to just bypass Iran entirely. They simply can't trust the Strait to remain open, so they have to find new logistical routes and form unprecedented partnerships to protect their borders and secure the global energy supply from further disruption. So what does this all mean? Over the course of this explainer, we've unpacked massive, overlapping kinetic strikes, the total shattering of long-standing diplomatic frameworks, and the rapid formation of brand new international alliances basically overnight. With the old deals completely torn apart and these new alliances drawing firm battle lines in the sand, what does the future of Middle Eastern security actually look like without a ceasefire? Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. I hope mapping out these sources helped you grasp the sheer scope of this puzzle. And I really encourage you to keep exploring how this fast-moving geopolitical landscape shifts next. Catch you next time.